In the northern reaches of the old empire stood the city of Veyr, built within a valley where sunlight arrived late and departed early. Its walls were fashioned from pale stone. Its towers rose like fingers clasped in prayer. Bells marked every hour, even through the night, because the people of Veyr believed that silence invited unwanted things. Yet, despite their bells, their prayers, and their guarded gates, sleep became their undoing. It began with children. They awoke speaking in voices that did not belong to them. They described cities beneath black oceans, stairways descending through the stars, and a vast presence watching from behind the moon. Then came the sleepwalkers. Men and women left their homes after midnight and wandered toward the northern cliffs. Their eyes remained closed. Their bare feet bled upon the stones, but they did not awaken. Those restrained in their beds screamed without moving. Those allowed to walk threw themselves into the ravine. Within weeks, terror ruled Veyr. Families kept vigil around lamps. Merchants sold bitter herbs and burning powders. Soldiers patrolled the streets with drums, striking them whenever they saw someone beginning to doze. But exhaustion proved stronger than discipline. One by one, the people slept, and one by one, they began dreaming of the same eye. It floated within an endless violet darkness, larger than a cathedral dome. Its iris turned slowly around a depthless pupil. It did not blink. Those who saw it felt no hatred from it. Hatred would have been comforting. The eye regarded them as a scholar regarded insects trapped beneath glass. The royal physicians called the phenomenon a fever of the mind. The priests called it punishment. The frightened citizens gave it another name. They called it the Sleepless God. Only one woman in Veyr refused to believe it was divine. Her name was Serath Vale, physician to the royal household and scholar of forbidden anatomy. She'd watched her husband walk from their bed with his eyes closed. She had followed him through the streets. She'd failed to stop him at the cliff. Afterward, grief stripped her of faith, mercy, and fear. When her own dreams began to fill with the violet eye, Serath did not pray for deliverance. She stared back, and somewhere beyond the boundaries of sleep, something noticed her defiance. Serath began her experiments beneath the royal infirmary. The chamber had once served as a crypt for plague victims. Its stone tables were stained dark with age, and iron channels carried blood toward a sealed drain in the floor. There, beneath the city, she studied the sleeping. Volunteers were difficult to find. Subjects were not. The prisons had filled with those who had harmed themselves or others while dreaming. Some awoke speaking forgotten languages. Some had carved circles into their flesh. Some insisted that their bodies were merely doors through which the eye might eventually enter. Serath measured their breath. She opened their skulls after death. She examined the delicate tissues behind their eyes and found thin violet filaments growing along the nerves. They were not veins, they were roots. The discovery confirmed what she had feared. The dreams were not messages, they were an invasion. Every sleeping mind in Veyr had become fertile ground for something beyond the known world. The eye was planting fragments of itself within them, strand by strand, dream by dream. Serath believed consciousness was the only barrier. While awake, the mind was defended by memory, sensation, and pain. During sleep, those defenses weakened. Dreams opened pathways that waking thought kept sealed. Therefore, the answer seemed simple. The people of Veyr must never sleep again. Serath distilled stimulants from frostroot, grave moss, and the adrenal glands of hunted beasts. Her first formula kept a soldier awake for 6 days. On the 7th, his heart burst. Her second preserved the heart, but destroyed the mind. The subjects remained upright, staring and muttering, unable to recognize their own names. Her third succeeded for 11 days, then every subject fell asleep at the same moment. They never woke. Serath became convinced that chemistry alone could not resist the invading presence. The body demanded sleep as it demanded air. To deny it permanently required something that could replace the body's natural rhythm, something equally powerful, something taken from the enemy itself. Each night, Serath sat before a mirror and allowed herself to drift toward unconsciousness. When the violet eye appeared, she forced herself awake with a blade pressed into her palm. She repeated the ritual for months. Soon she could remain at the threshold between waking and dreaming. There, she heard whispers behind the eye. Not a single voice, but thousands, layered together. Some begged, some laughed. Some recited the names of vanished kingdoms. Among them, Serath recognized her husband.
Do not follow.
His voice warned. She followed. Serath prepared her descent on the longest night of winter. She drew a circle of silver around the stone table. She fastened iron hooks to her arms and legs, so that any violent movement would tear flesh and awaken her. Around her neck she wore an empty setting of black metal, crafted to hold whatever she might bring back. 3 assistants observed from beyond the circle. Their orders were precise. If Serath began speaking in an unknown voice, they were to ring the infirmary bell. If her eyes turned violet, they were to sever her head. If she remained asleep when dawn came, they were to burn the chamber. Serath drank a tincture of poppy milk and shadowcap. The crypt faded. She dreamed of falling upward. Stars passed beneath her. Oceans hung above her. The laws governing distance and direction collapsed until she no longer possessed a body with which to understand them. At last, she arrived at the place behind sleep. It was not a kingdom. It was the absence left when all kingdoms ended. Countless pale figures drifted through the void, each bound by violet strands leading toward the colossal eye. Some were recent victims from Veyr. Others wore the crowns and armor of civilizations erased from history. All were dreaming. All were feeding it. The eye opened wider as Serath approached. A voice entered her mind without sound.
You have come awake into my dream.
Serath felt her memories being examined. Childhood summers, her first dissection, her husband's hand in hers, his body disappearing over the cliff.
You are not a god,
she said.
Gods require belief. I require only sleep.
The pupil widened. Within it, Serath saw worlds. In each, living beings slept. In each, the eye waited beneath their dreams, feeding slowly across centuries.
What are you?
The witness after consciousness.
Violet threads reached for her. Serath tore one free. Pain passed through every soul connected to the eye. The void shook with their screams. The strand writhed in her hand like a living nerve. It attempted to burrow into her skin, but Serath wrapped it around the empty black setting at her throat. The metal closed upon it. For the first time, the eye reacted, not with anger, with surprise. Serath awakened upon the stone table. All 3 assistants were dead. Their bodies stood upright around her, eyes open and faces frozen in terror. The crypt bell was ringing, though no hand pulled its rope. Around Serath's neck hung a violet stone. It resembled an eye with a narrow black pupil. It was warm, and from within it her husband whispered,
Now you can see through you.
Serath named the relic the Unblinking Covenant. When she wore it, exhaustion vanished. Her muscles still weakened. Her heart still labored. Hunger and thirst remained. But the irresistible descent into sleep no longer came. She could close her eyes for hours and remain fully conscious. No dream could claim her. The violet filaments beneath her skin retreated. The whispers faded. For the first time in nearly a year, Serath felt the Sleepless God's influence leave her mind. She presented the covenant to King Aldrin and his council. The king had not slept in 4 days. Servants struck brass plates beside his throne whenever his head lowered. 2 of his children had already walked from the palace roof. Serath explained what she had discovered. The thing behind the dreams could not enter a mind that never surrendered consciousness. The amulet held a fragment of its power, forcing awareness to continue beyond the body's natural limits. The king demanded that she make more. Serath refused. The violet strand within the amulet had been torn directly from the Great Eye. She did not know whether another journey could be survived. She did not know whether the relic itself was safe.
You have found salvation,
Aldrin said.
and you would keep it around your own neck?
I have found a locked door.
Serath answered.
I do not yet know which side of it we occupy.
The king ordered her imprisoned. The Covenant prevented the guards from stunning her when she resisted. Clubs shattered against her skull, yet her consciousness never faltered. She felt every blow. She remembered every fracture. But she did not fall. Serath escaped through the infirmary tunnels and fled into the city. By then, Veyr was collapsing. Citizens burned their beds in the streets. Temples overflowed with people, terrified to close their eyes. Soldiers executed sleepwalkers before they reached the cliffs. Serath realized one amulet could not save them, yet it might reveal a cure. She began moving from house to house, placing the Covenant around the necks of the afflicted. The moment it touched them, they awakened. Some returned grateful, others returned screaming. A young mother clawed at Serath's face and begged to be allowed back into the dream, where her dead children still lived. An old priest claimed he had spent 1,000 years beneath the eye, though only 2 nights had passed in Veyr. A soldier awakened, speaking with Serath's husband's voice.
You stole part of it.
He said,
Now we must fill the wound.
each life restored by the Covenant strengthened the violet stone. Its iris became clearer, its whispers grew louder, and Serath began to feel something else. A second heartbeat, pulsing against her chest. Months passed without sleep. Serath's hair whitened. Her skin thinned. Dark veins spread from her neck toward her heart. The Covenant preserved consciousness, but not life. Her body continued paying the cost of wakefulness, even though her mind no longer recognized exhaustion. Wounds healed slowly. Food tasted like ash. Her hands trembled unless she held the amulet. Worst of all, she could no longer forget. Ordinary minds softened pain through sleep. Memories faded, fractured, and changed with time. Serath's did not. Every death remained immediate. Every scream retained its original sharpness. She remembered the exact sound of her husband's bones striking the rocks below the cliff. She remembered every patient she had dissected. She remembered the 3 assistants standing dead around her. The Covenant gave perfect awareness. Perfect awareness became torture. Still, Serath worked. She discovered that the amulet did not simply repel the dreaming presence. It consumed the connection between the invader and its victim. Whenever she awakened someone, the violet threads within that person were drawn into the stone. The Covenant was becoming a vessel. Within it gathered fragments of thousands of minds, memories, fears, unfinished dreams, and pieces of the Great Eye itself. Serath began hearing them even while awake. They spoke from mirrors and dark windows. They whispered beneath conversations. Sometimes they warned her of danger. Sometimes they lied. King Aldrin's hunters eventually found her in an abandoned bell tower. The king himself accompanied them. He had changed. Violet roots had spread across his face, and one of his eyes had become entirely black. He no longer needed servants to keep him awake. The Sleepless God had learned to inhabit the waking.
You could have saved us.
Aldrin said.
That thing does not save.
It showed me a realm without death.
It showed you what would make you surrender.
Aldrin smiled. Behind him, the royal soldiers moved with unnatural unity. Violet strands connected their shadows.
The city no longer fears sleep.
He said.
We have accepted the dream.
The soldiers attacked. Serath fought through them with no grace and no mercy. Spears pierced her side. A mace broke her jaw. An arrow entered her shoulder. Each impact should have thrown her into darkness. The Covenant refused. She remained awake through all of it. She remained standing. At last, she reached Aldrin and pressed the amulet against his corrupted eye. The king screamed, Violet light flooded the tower. For a moment, Serath saw the presence behind him, not merely watching through Aldrin, but reaching through every sleeping mind in Veyr. The Covenant pulled. The king collapsed. The blackness left his eye, and the violet stone around Serath's neck cracked. From the fracture came a voice vast enough to shake the city.
I see you.
Every bell in Veyr began to ring. The Covenant had never been a lock, it was a seed. By feeding it, the connections torn from the afflicted. Serath had gathered enough of the Sleepless God's essence to create a doorway into the waking world. The crack in the amulet widened. Violet light poured across the bell tower floor, forming the outline of an enormous pupil. Stone softened around it. Gravity bent toward it. The shadows of distant buildings stretched across the city to touch its edge. People awoke in their beds and began walking toward the tower. Others fell asleep while standing. Above Veyr, the clouds opened in a perfect circle. Beyond them waited no sky, only the eye. King Eldrin lay at Serath's feet, weak and human once more.
What have you done?
He whispered.
What you demanded.
She replied.
I made salvation for everyone.
The Covenant's chain fused with Serath's flesh. She attempted to tear it free, but the black metal had grown through her collarbones and around her spine. The second heartbeat within it now matched her own. The eye was using her as its anchor. Serath descended from the tower while the city convulsed. Streets folded into impossible angles. Doorways opened into memories. Dream creatures crawled from the mouths of sleeping citizens, pale imitations of loved ones. Childhood fears made flesh, faceless figures carrying empty cradles. The boundaries between mind and matter were disappearing. Serath understood that the invasion had never required armies. It required only a single consciousness, strong enough to remain open while the eye crossed through it. Her defiance had made her ideal. At the infirmary, she found her old records and the instruments from her experiments. She calculated the rate of the Covenant's growth. She examined the black roots beneath her skin. There was only one solution. The doorway had to be carried back across the threshold. But returning to the realm behind sleep required unconsciousness. The Covenant made unconsciousness impossible. Serath laughed when she understood the cruelty of it. The relic protected its bearer from the only escape that remained. Outside, thousands of voices spoke together.
You wish to wake them?
And the walls bulged inward like breathing flesh.
Now all shall wake.
Serath took up a bone saw. She began cutting the amulet from her body. Serath could not remove the Covenant. Its roots had reached her heart. To tear it free would kill her, but death itself might not close the doorway. The Sleepless God had woven its consciousness through hers. If she died awake, her final awareness could become a permanent bridge. She needed to die dreaming. In the royal crypts beneath Veyr lay a poison used for the execution of noble traitors. It slowed the heart, silenced the nerves, and brought a sleep so deep that victims felt no pain as they died. Serath carried the poison to the northern cliffs. The city followed. Thousands walked behind her in silence, survivors, dreamers, soldiers, children, and shapes wearing human memories. Above them, the vast eye filled the broken sky. At the cliff's edge, Serath found the place where her husband had fallen. The Covenant spoke with his voice.
You can still save him.
Below the cliff, the darkness changed. She saw her husband standing upon an impossible shore. He looked exactly as he had on the night of his death.
Serath,
He called.
I have been waiting.
For one terrible moment, she believed. Then she noticed that he did not blink. She opened a vial of poison. The eye above the city narrowed.
Sleep is mine.
Not this one.
Serath said. She drank. The Covenant erupted with heat. Its roots tightened around her heart. Violet light burned through her veins as the relic fought to preserve her consciousness. Serath fell to her knees. She remained awake. The poison slowed her breath. The Covenant forced it onward. The poison dimmed her vision. The Covenant sharpened it. She felt every heartbeat become a battle between oblivion and awareness. The Sleepless God poured power into the amulet, desperate to keep its doorway open. The stone expanded across Serath's chest, its iris turning toward her face. For the first time, it seemed afraid. Serath crawled to the cliff's edge. Her husband's imitation reached up from below.
Do not leave me again.
Tears filled her eyes.
I never did.
She drove both hands into the cracked amulet. The stone opened like flesh. Inside it swirled every dream and mind it had consumed. Serath reached into the impossible depth and seized the violet strand she had first torn from the eye. Then she jumped. As she fell, the poison finally overcame the Covenant. For the first time in many months, Serath Vale began to sleep. The world behind her opened. The Sleepless God screamed. Serath dragged the strand with her into the dream. The great eye, bound to the other end, was pulled from the sky. Across Veyr, violet roots tore free from flesh and stone. Dream creatures collapsed into mist. The vast pupil above the city folded inward as though dragged through the eye of a needle. Serath struck the darkness below. Her body died. Her mind continued falling, and the doorway closed behind her. Veyr survived, not unchanged and not whole. Nearly half its people were dead. Others remembered lifetimes spent in the dream and could no longer accept the narrow boundaries of ordinary existence. The bells were taken down. No one wished to hear them ring at night. King Aldrin surrendered his crown and spent his remaining years rebuilding the infirmaries Serath had used for her experiments. Above its entrance, he carved her name. He did not call her a saint. She would have hated that. He called her the last sleeper. The Unblinking Covenant was found 3 years later. A fisherman discovered it among the black stones at the base of the northern cliffs. Its chain was broken. Its violet eye had closed, leaving only a narrow seam across the gem. The relic was sealed inside a silver casket and buried beneath the infirmary. And generations passed. Veyr became a city known for healers, astronomers, and philosophers of the mind. The story of Serath became a warning told to children who refused to sleep. Wakefulness is not freedom. Consciousness is not courage. And no mind was made to witness everything. Centuries later, grave robbers entered the old infirmary. They broke the silver casket and found the amulet within. The gem appeared dull and lifeless. They argued over its value, unaware that the chamber had grown strangely quiet. One robber lifted the chain. The seam in the stone opened. A violet iris turned toward him. He froze. His companions struck him, shouted at him, and tried to drag him away. He did not fall. He did not blink. He did not look away. Within the gem, a woman's voice whispered from an immeasurable distance.
Do not wear it.
Behind her voice came another, vaster, older, patient.
I am still awake.